All right, let's get right into it. Think of this as a bit of a brutal reality check on the whole victim mentality. So, if you're not quite ready to hear that you are in fact responsible for your own situation, well, this might sting a little. For everyone else who's ready to take control, let's begin.
So, I want you to picture something. Imagine someone puts a gun to your head and forces you to run a full 42-kilometer marathon. That would be absolute torture, right? A terrifying nightmare. Now, imagine you chose to do it. You bought the shoes, you put in the training for months, and then you crossed that finish line. That would be one of the proudest moments of your life. The physical pain? It's identical. The distance is exactly the same, but the meaning? The meaning is night and day.
So, what's the secret sauce here? What separates that suffering from that empowerment? It all boils down to one single, incredibly powerful thing: choice. The meaning you give your struggles is totally up to you. It all depends on whether you see yourself as a participant in your own life or just a victim of it. So here's our roadmap for the next few minutes. We're going to walk through 5 key stages. First, we'll lay the foundation: choice, blame, and responsibility. Then we'll start peeling back the layers of our own self-awareness, kind of like an onion. After that, we'll get into how to actively tear down that victim mindset. Then we'll literally rewire how we think about motivation. And finally, we'll learn how to embrace the very pain and failure that's going to lead to real growth. Okay, let's kick things off with part 1: choice, blame, and responsibility. Seriously, everything else we talk about today is built on top of this. This is where we stop looking in the rearview mirror and start taking the wheel. The very first step, the first hard truth you have to swallow is this: you are always choosing. There's no way around it. Even when you feel stuck, when you feel like you're doing nothing, that inaction, that is a choice. It's a choice to let things stay exactly as they are.
And that leads us to this really crucial difference we have to make in our heads. We've got to separate blame from responsibility. You see, blame is a dead-end street. It's always about the past, pointing fingers at people or things you have zero power to change anymore. But responsibility? Aha! That's where the power lives. It lives right here, in the present. It's all about the choices you can make right now, no matter what happened yesterday.
This is just a brilliant way to understand it. Imagine you wake up, open your front door, and there's a baby sitting on your doorstep. Now, it's not your fault the baby is there, right? You didn't put it there. But guess what? It is now 100% your responsibility to decide what happens next. Do you call for help? Do you bring it inside? Do you pretend you didn't see it? Your response is your choice. That's where your power is. All right, so now that we've established we're responsible, let's move on to section 2. It's time to dig a little deeper with what we're calling the self-awareness onion. This is all about getting to the why behind what we're feeling. If you want to get real control over your life, you have to start asking yourself this question over and over again. It's simple, but man, is it profound. See, it's not enough to just feel angry or sad. You got to understand where that feeling is actually coming from. And this is how you do it. You peel the onion. The first outer layer is easy enough. You just identify the emotion. Okay, I'm angry. Then you peel back the next layer. You ask why. I'm angry because my boss dismissed my idea. But the real breakthrough, the core of the onion, is that third layer, finding the core value that's being stepped on. Why does this situation feel like a failure to you? Maybe it's because you deeply value innovation or respect. That right there reveals what actually drives you. And that brings us to the kinds of values we choose. You see, some values are just useless. They're built on things you can't control, like needing to be right all the time or forcing yourself to feel positive 24/7. That's just a recipe for anxiety. The real, powerful values are the ones you can control, right here in the present. Things like honesty, creativity, self-respect. Those are the metrics that actually lead to a meaningful life. Okay, part 3. Now it's time to go on the offensive. This section is all about actively rejecting that victim mindset by tearing down the ego's defenses that has been holding you back. You know, if you look around, it almost seems fashionable to be a victim these days. There's a weird chic of victimhood. But here's the trap. Complaining, it gives you this temporary little emotional high, this rush of feeling morally superior. But it's a poison. It completely drains your energy and your focus away from actually solving the problems you're complaining about. So, how do you break that cycle? You have to learn to embrace doubt. The feeling of being absolutely 100% certain about something, that is the #1 enemy of personal growth. You have to be humble enough to accept that your beliefs, the things you're so sure of right now, could be wrong. That little bit of uncertainty, that's the crack where the light gets in. It's the only way to learn. And our brains make this really tricky because of something called the law of evasion. We are psychologically wired to run like hell from anything that threatens who we think we are. So if your identity is, I'm just an average employee, you will subconsciously sabotage any chance to start that side business because succeeding would threaten the very story you tell yourself about who you are. Okay, enough of the heavy psychological stuff. Let's get super practical. Section 4 is all about the action motivation cycle. This is the secret to building unstoppable momentum. So, most of us think that motivation works like this, right? First, you sit around and wait for some magical bolt of inspiration to strike. Then, that inspiration somehow turns into motivation, and only then, finally, do you take action. The problem is, we spend our entire lives waiting for step 1, and it rarely ever comes.
But what if that whole model, the one we've been taught our whole lives, is completely backward? Well, the hack is simple, but it is a total game changer. You've got to reverse it.
This is called the do something principle. Action isn't the result of motivation. It is the cause of it. Think about that. By taking one tiny little action, anything at all, you create a tiny spark. That spark is inspiration. And that inspiration is what fuels real, sustainable motivation to take the next step. Action is the kindling for the fire of motivation.
And that brings us to our final section. And honestly, this might be the hardest part of the whole journey, embracing pain and failure. This is the final step. This is where true ownership is really forged in fire.
Look, this process isn't some walk in the park. When you start changing your values and taking real action, there are going to be side effects. You will feel uncertain. You'll feel like you're betraying the person you used to be. And you might even get pushback from people who were really comfortable with the old excuse-making you. These feelings aren't signs that you're doing something wrong. They are proof that you are growing. And finally, you have to learn to see failure differently. You have to embrace it as the only real road to getting good at anything. Think about anyone you admire, anyone who's better than you at something. I can almost guarantee you that person has simply failed more times than you have even bothered to try. Success is just a mountain built from a whole lot of failures. So let me leave you with one last tool you can use every single day. The next time you're afraid to admit you might be wrong about something, just ask yourself this one question. Which choice creates a better problem? The problem of humility and growth, or the problem of ego and stagnation? Answering that honestly is the ultimate sign that you've finally taken control. We've reached the end of this explanation, but this is just the beginning of your action. To really cement this for yourself, I want you to go down to the comments right now and type these 3 words. I am responsible. This isn't for me, it's not for anyone else. It's a declaration to yourself that the age of excuses is officially over. Thank you for your time and your focus. Now go do something.